The Ksubi brand was birthed out of the maelstrom of creativity that emerged with the arrival of Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week in Sydney in the late 1990s. It was an incredible time where pretty much anything seemed possible. Track forward 24 years, and today, around the world, Ksubi is Australia's distressed denim pride and joy. Launching all the way back in 1999 on the northern beaches of Sydney by a group of surfer mates who felt the Aussie fashion offerings for men weren't entirely cutting it. The brand has since grown into a powerhouse, repped by the likes of A$AP Rocky, the Kardashian sisters, LeBron James, Travis Scott, Madonna, Kate Moss, and more. From the beginning, Ksubi quickly found itself gaining a reputation as one of the hottest Australian brands, with A-listers like Sienna Miller and Kate Moss rocking the jeans at places like Coachella and Glastonbury. Collabs with renowned fashion icons like Jeremy Scott followed, and always the sexy and always controversial ad campaigns were consistently astounding people. But how did a renegade Australian denim brand, Ksubi, founded by Dan Single, George Go, and Gareth Moody, go from being a cult streetwear phenomena in Australia to being the American rap icon brand it is today? This is the tale of rats to rap, and it's a fascinating story.
Ding dong, they just think they are. Another little wannabe gangster trying to play hard. Ding dong, they just think they are. Another little wannabe gangster trying to play hard. The guys then dip out the ends. Jump in the ride and burn out the rims. Don't stop, don't catch the boy that I'm in. Now we doing the block with the up for events. Skin kept close to you plotting on them with the tits on 10. Back in the back.
While Ksubi's debut runway antics sent shockwaves through the business, the founders' fresh and fun approach to fashion won people over, all over the place. And given none of them had a traditional background in fashion, most of the initial designs were created at home, using angle grinders and then washed in with rocks in the founders' own washing machines to create their unique brand of distressed denim. It was a very creative, ingenious endeavor. One of the most unique aspects of the Ksubi founding was it was formed as a kind of a creative collective rather than a conventional fashion brand or design business. It was kind of like much in the mold of the Warhol factory before it. The Ksubi Creative Collective powered its uniquely defined DNA right from the very jump. It was sprung from the unique terroir of Sydney's northern beaches. Ksubi was founded by a group of young surfer creatives. They were friends and fellow surfers. It seemed that Ksubi was always going to make an impact, no matter how hard the boys, tried for it not to. And it was partly because of this renegade attitude, right from the very beginning, that they did things in their own time and very much in their own way. Ksubi's incendiary debut, Strangers in Paradise, sounded more like a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical title than the rebellious bomb it would turn out to be.
When I came back from New York City, where I was living for a while, I met all the Ksubi crew and we started hanging out. And it was just, they really brought a new energy to Australian fashion, which was unlike anybody else. It was exciting, it was experimental, it was also street and urban, but with a very artistic edge. And I love the way that they brought in their own histories and their own ideas into fashion, which was kind of unlike what anybody was doing at the time. They were able to sort of cross the barrier of art and design and fashion and bring in this new energy to Australian Fashion Week, to streetwear, to urban wear. And also, they were just so much fun to be around. Oh, it's so cute to see George then and Gareth so young and fresh.
They also discovered a talent for self-promotion, most memorably 4 years ago when the Ksubi boys made world headlines by turning a catwalk into a rat walk.
We're sitting around and Gareth said to me, he goes, what girl do you reckon we should get to come out first? And I went, oh, dude, I don't know. If I could have any choice, I'd have a rat. And then we just went, oh, why don't we have the rats come out first? That would be awesome.
I remember that. That was on a racetrack. And we were doing a calendar, which ended up being a huge success. They really knew how to market things.
To selling in 16 countries. The boys are now worth millions. Not that you can really tell. In this cutthroat, ferocious world of fashion, how do you three survive being so laid back?
We're kind of laid back. We just work really hard. We've got really good people around us. It's kind of, I don't know. We do our best. We work like we're not stupid either. Do you know what I mean? Like we might be laid back and things, but we kind of know what's going on.
So I'm here in the charming suburb of Rosebery in Sydney. Now, Rosebery is an interesting suburb. It used to be an old industrial area, very full of factories and manufacturing plants. There's the cannery, there's various confectionery manufacturing factories, like the Wrigley's Gum Factory, where our offices are. But these days, all these factories have been converted into the headquarters of the major fashion companies in Sydney. Literally, just around the corner from me, our offices, our studios, are the ateliers of Ksubi, Zimmerman, Sassenbide, and many, many more. And it's a great little suburb. It's full of huge old trees, wide streets, and pretty much every convenience you can find. So it makes a really great fashion hub here in Sydney. So I'm going to run up the road, literally it's just 300 metres, and catch up and do a bit of a tour of the Ksubi offices with my friend Craig King.
It's been talked about so many times. I still can visualize that. I still can feel the energy of that art. I still can just be like agog by what that experience was.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the soundtrack. It's the fact that it was just something so unique and a bit scary and weird, that there's that moment that becomes a part of your history because you've sort of imprinted it on yourself.
Oh, they really hit the ground of the runway running with the rats. I mean, it was marketing geniuses, fantastic ideas. They really, that rat I remember going to that show, and there was this buzz beforehand. Word started spreading, and you had people like buyers. They were looking to go to be rats on the runway, and it's like, well, that's one time you don't want to be in the front row. And a couple of rats died, and there was sort of like but they did. Well, that wasn't the only one they did. They did the one where the models jumped off the boat into the harbour. I mean, I don't think you'd ever get away with that. You wouldn't get away with any of those things probably now. There was the one, the exhibition of the campaign where they photographed the sunglasses. Oh, Christ, USA. What are the shows that they do? So I mean, really incredible. And what they were doing was fantastic streetwear, and the jeans, like the research at the jeans, and then drag them behind cars and stuff. So they were all kind of, surfers and punks. So I think they did, that was fantastic. I mean, utterly hopeless business people. There was one boutique where they had decorated the ceiling with jars full of shredded financial documents and stuff.
I clearly remember meeting Dan Single at the denim facility, the Denim Maker, and he was wearing a candy pink women's jumper, sort of off the shoulder, and he had this peroxided hair. And we was like, who? But he looks out of place here. He looks like someone we would have met in one of the nightclubs in London or something, not downtown Marrickville or wherever it was. So we struck up a conversation that day and, became great friends very quickly.
I mean, there were some great names that arrived, that first fashion week or second fashion week. Ksubi was one of them. I can recall waiting for hours for the show to start, watching rats running up and down the runway to many of the fashion mavens' horror.
So what happened when Ksubi was doing one of their fashion week shows, and Ksubi in those days were, the boys were party animals, and they always wanted to shock. And they got most of their PR and media attention from shocking, doing funny, mad things. And I remember when I walked into the venue, because nobody knew what was going to happen here, but there was something weird about the catwalk, because the runway, because it had these little troughs all the way around it, right? So it was like, oh, something's going to happen here. I mean, you wouldn't think a trough was to do with rats, but, and then of course it happened. The rats came out and they dropped them out of the bags and they ran everywhere and the models walked through them and all this sort of stuff. And the rats were just running all over the bloody place. And, what did I think of that? I thought that was hideous. I thought it was just so unnecessary. It was ugly. I felt sorry for the models. They had to concentrate on where they were walking.
So I first actually become aware with Ksubi, the three guys from Ksubi, when they had a first show at Fashion Week. And unfortunately, I wasn't there. I only read a newspaper, and there's the rats on the runway. And that's when actually become when they become terribly well known. Because of what happened, But it also actually, I believe that the quality of actually the creativity that they offered was actually highly charged, But I become quite close to them when we were invited to visit Moscow to show our collection, because there's a new boutique in Moscow was opening, and the Car & Co. And Rosa, who was actually the owner of Car & Co, kindly invited actually a number of designers from Australia for the opening. So we had a great fun. Yeah, we are whole package. I remember party lovers,
I think, the early 2000s was a time for denim. The denim we'd worn in the 90s was pretty baggy, and it was Calvin Klein, and it was falling off our hips with underwear showing and blah, blah, blah. So it was a very different kind of denim, because it was pretty much fitted to the body, and it was hipster, and everybody wanted denim. It was the new thing, and it was all about denim below and low mesh tops on top and something sexy on top. It was a big denim moment, and they just kind of seized that moment. I think they just knew what was happening.
The impact the Ksubi boys had is the stuff of legends. When the guys, and this was year 2, I think, year 2 or 3, the Brat Pack came to see me, Dan and George and Gareth and the crew, and I had invited them to be part of the New Generation show. And they're like, dude, we don't want to be part of a group show. We've got this concept we want to do for ourselves. I'm like, well, guys, you're part of this group show. And I'll put you on at the end of the group show and you can do your stuff. And they're like, okay, but let us tell you what we want to do. And they took us through the concept of what they wanted to do, which was just like, you want to do what? Well, hang on, that's not going to work within a group show. So Jared and I and Marco got together and we said, okay, we're going to give them their own show because it's the only way we're going to be able to produce this. So what we had to do was to create an environment that protected the audience from what was about to come out on the runway. We had to build about a 1/2 meter wide ledge or fence of perspex all around the outside of this 30-meter catwalk, because what the Ksubi guys wanted to do is, as the models were walking out, they wanted to release 200 or 300 rats onto the runway and let the models walk through the rats. And it's just like, what? Firstly, where are you going to get 200 or 300 rats from? Secondly, these rats are going to go everywhere. How are we going to corral them? And so we produced this amazing show together. The impact, firstly, in the room was, it was a cross between a circus, a horror show, and the best piece of theatre you've ever come across. We had some of the most prestigious buyers in the front row having a heart attack, thinking these rats were about to leap over the perspex onto their laps, screaming and carrying on. We had some of the models who were petrified of rats and would, sheepishly walking down the runway. But then I'll never forget one of our famous millennial models, Tione, who was a good country girl, grew up around animals, strode out and grabbed one of the biggest rats and just let it rain all through her hair and over her face. And it was an absolute moment. They also, it was all about deconstruction and distress, the collection. They had people coming out in wheelchairs, falling over. It was, we had the whole thing staged at the end where the backdrop fell down and curtains came crashing down. It was incredible. And then what happened? The next day, we all woke up with those images being carried pretty much on the front newspaper of every major newspaper around the world. So Ksubi, with their incredible theatrical act, had put Australian Fashion Week on the front page of every newspaper around the world. And that really was, a signal to the world that something fantastic is happening in Sydney, Australia, at Australian Fashion Week. So yeah, it was quite a moment.
From the moment the rats were released down the Mercedes-Benz Australian Fashion Week runway during the breakout Strangers in Paradise show in 2001, Ksubi had broken all of the rules of what fashion brand could and should do. And they would keep consistently shocking and astounding people at every single turn. To say they raised the bar in shameless self-promotion and hijinks is indeed an understatement. Back when Ksubi was spelt with a T, founders Dan Siegel, George Gorrow and Gareth Moody decided 169 rodents would be a good addition to their runway show in 2001. This was not a debut for a new breakout label. We'd seen that many times before. This was a world-shattering cultural phenomena, the same kind of cultural impact that turned the music business on its head with the arrival of the Sex Pistols on the Bill Grundy show, all the way back in December 1976, when they traded insults and swore at the host, shocking the entire world. Virtually, the rats had made the boys instantly famous right around the world. The all-too-serious fashion industry was shocked by their audacity, and the jeans buying public wanted in on the fun. The jeans would sell out in a flash. wherever they were dropped. Customers and retailers alike were crazy for their jeans. Their stunts were legendary, even by today's standards. Packaging Converse sneakers, crafted out of raw meat, long before Lady Gaga would wear her most famous meat dress.
The Ksubi boys were just fun. You know, everybody wanted to be involved with the Ksubi boys. They were the cool cats. They rocked their wares. They lived a full life. They had such a strong aesthetic, and the intense following that they had was insane.
Yeah, and I think for the Ksubi boys, you know, they were just no rules. You know, it was just anarchy in a fashion sense. So they challenged every, traditional notion, and they just, everything was up for grabs. It was all just this melting pot of heightened creativity and raw talent and a lot of collaborative work. You know, everyone was pulling in a friend or a girlfriend or someone's sister to just work on some element of the business. So it was almost like, reminded me of like an Andy Warhol's factory, but set in Australia.
What are the chances of the arrival of the Sassenbard girls and the Ksubi boys at the same time, and both of them having sort of denim at their core? Such an unusual thing to happen, but again, such a perfectly timed thing for both of them, because, the denim sort of revolution at the time was going in different directions, led by music, led by different trends that were happening, and they were both a part of their scene. Their scenes were different, but they both found their time together. Both of them looked to be enjoying themselves in different ways, but you knew both of them were having fun.
It was a little bit more gritty and raw and targeted to guys, even though the girls were wearing the boyfriend jeans, and it was all a bit of crossover. But ours was a bit more of a sort of sexy feminine aesthetic, and theirs was, a bit just tough and raw and gritty and guys and punk and da-da-da.
I remember being at Fashion Week for that. There's a real connectivity between the successful Australian brands, even if their product is completely different, like Collette, Dinnigan and Ksubi. It's, again, this authenticity. They were who they were. They were exuberant lads. We heard about them dyeing their garments in garbage bins and really taking on that sort of grunge element that was really big at the time. But it didn't feel as though they were just engineering something to be suitable for the time. They really felt like they were a part of the time, and they were doing what was authentically them. So I thought they were great.
Occasionally in this job you catch a glimpse of dreams realised, of deserved success from small beginnings. Here in New York I found such a story. On its crowded sidewalks and busy streets, I found two of the most fashionable names in fashion, and they're Australian.
Yeah, Boyles, I know, all the friends of the creative, a lot of interesting creative friends. It was this whole...
Yeah, it was a whole lifestyle. It's just a tribe, the Ksubi tribe, and they just demanded presence, and everywhere they went, they had energy, a great energy in that.
Really interesting, cool things, very street. Sort of, it was quite nice because we were offering slightly different aesthetics, but still there was a bit of common ground as well.
Following on from the Rats, the Ksubi boys racked up one media stunt after the other, each more unexpected and crazier than the last. They left both the media and the fashion public anticipating their every next move. They would shoot a marketing campaign in the Australian desert using Aboriginal kids as talent. They made models walk the plank into Sydney Harbour post a show in 2003, or the hot rod-inspired Roadkill, Heroin and My Death Machine calendar in 2004, shot by the late great Richard Bailey, featuring a stellar cast of models such as a young Miranda Kerr in barely their shreds of jeans, washing a car in a car wash. And each time, perhaps surprisingly, that the level of execution and the quality of their stunts was brilliant. Just like the Sex Pistols before them, there was a genius at play here. And it wasn't just reckless folly. They were rewriting the whole rule book on how to create a global brand.
I mean, Ksubi's a good example. You know, I spent a whole lot of my professional career trying to persuade those boys to sell to David Jones, and they would not have a bar of us. And, you know, in hindsight, neither would I have. At that point, they were at the wrong stage of business. But I can remember waiting for 3 hours and watching rats run down that runway and being, I don't know what the word is, shocked, amazed, whatever, by what they achieved.
In 2002, they made their international launch by having a show in an abandoned tube station in London and in-store installations in premier UK department store Selfridges. Needing props to decorate the tube station, but not having the local knowledge or the ability to acquire and procure things, they were put in touch with a group of London's pikeys. Think the kind of pikeys in Guy Ritchie's Snatch, the movie. And the pikeys assured the boys that they could wink, wink, nudge, nudge, get anything in London, no matter how legal or illegal that happened to be. Ksubi continued with their unique signature of doing crazy, unpredictable stunts, whether they were at home or abroad. They opened their first international boutique, Bring Back Life, in New York's Lolita in 2005. The boys again gained instant US celebrity status and interest as a cult US following. And the Ksubi Collective was an ongoing collaborative creative process where new creative people and new minds were brought in. There were collabs with Richard Nichol, the Askill Brothers, Cobra Snake, Modular Records, DJ outfit Bang Gang, which founder Dan Single was a member of. The amazing artists like Jonathan Zawada, Demote, Michelle Jank, Richard Bailey, Christine Santana, Dion Anthony, Mikey Nolan, even restaurateur Morris Terzini. More than selling a cult denim brand, Ksubi was redefining how people thought about popular culture and art. The creation of the Ksubi Gold Book marked the brand's 5th year in 2005. The Gold Book was about paying tribute to the life and times of the Ksubi Collective, the art, the people, the fashion, and the fun that was behind what defined Ksubi. The book cemented the brand's status on the global stage, and to that end, the brand staged an ambitious global tour, like all major rock stars of their level of fame would. Launches were staged in Sydney, then in Paris, then in London, then in Hong Kong, Los Angeles. Just like they were an all-conquering rock band, the book was a celebration of the brand's friends, family, celebrities, and influential media that lusted after a part of the Ksubi experience. In 2007, they released another book, Sign of the Time, and this, again, fueling the alluring spell that the Ksubi brand could cast with its unique sense of humour, imagination and wonderment, with images of a travelling installation of a giant 3D hand, forming a peace sign, but with its main 2 fingers hacksawed off or chainsawed off and fake blood put in place. And the statue was photographed in iconic American locations. The book was finished in New York City with a 9/11 arrival date, serving as a tongue-in-cheek reminder and the statement questioning the unscrupulous politics of our times. Ksubi with a T, as it was then known, had to do a name change due to a trademark dispute with footwear brand Subo. The brand is also credited with creating the coloured denim phenomenon that it did in mid-2011. And to launch this collection, they teamed with renowned Australian director Daniel Askill to create a promo film. The film was a fume-filled slow-motion battle between 3 colour-clad models, Bambi Northwood Blythe, Cisco Goro and Heidi Harrington Johnson, and a trio of 80s muscle cars blowing different kinds and colours of smoke. And it featured the very last sets of tyres, or coloured tyres by Kumo in Australia. Ascot and his team at Collette fused the layers of vivid smoke with a unique denim range in a spectrum of colours. To commemorate Ksubi's eyewear launch, the brand staged a nationwide exhibition titled Magnum Opus. As a way of poking fun of itself, Magnum Opus showcased 12 images, each featuring a real penis, styled as a rock star, with each framed by a pair of sunglasses, their collection. Once again, creating a whole new media furor. And with Ksubi Custom, the idea was to modify and personalise garments as one-offs. The Italia space they had in their ghost shop in Paddington was the workshop where they would customise items to create genuine one-offs, painting, printing, embroidering, tie-dyeing, studding, bleaching and stretching and shredding.
The founders of Ksubi, where they landed is, they took some basic commodity, particularly the denim, and said, it doesn't just have to be like that. We can draw on it, we can tear it up, we can make it bigger, we can shred it. It was a great blank canvas to be dynamic and move with the times.
Look, Ksubi, all I thought was like, how cool, And same with Sass and Wide later on. And I just felt like, knowing that these brands became big internationally due to their sort of stylish effortlessness, really kind of reinforced this. It reinforced my conviction that there was something special about Australian fashion that needed to be captured in a brand, a clear brand, proposition or DNA.
I did a story for the Sydney Morning Herald about the trademark dispute when Pseudo, basically took them to court saying it's too close to our name, and they didn't agree. I remember interviewing George, or speaking to George Yarrow at the time, and he sort of said, just ignore the letter. I mean, they kind of didn't pay any attention to it. And, they came up with a very clever compromise, which was Ksubi with a K. But that would have cost, and they had to rebrand. That would have cost a huge amount of money, legal fees, and they could have saved themselves that. But look, they obviously had more pressing issues than listening to or looking at a letter about a trademark dispute from an American brand owner. But look, they're not the only business to crash and burn from a financial perspective. I mean, it is a tough business. It's art and commerce. You've got to have both right. And I mean, if you don't have the commercial, nous, you team up with someone who does, or you have advisors around you.
With the exploding growth, Ksubi had already encountered business shortcomings, having faced with forced name change. That must have been a big jolt to their business. And in spite of the label considering itself to be beyond a fashion label, but more a creative pursuit, Ksubi needed to make money. It was ultimately a business, carrying out the business, an objective of generating income. Because without this, the label could not continue to exist, no matter how cool it was. With this in mind, the label needed to take account of its competitors, both in the local and the international arena. A label to survive must consider branding, as well as all the commercial aspects. And with globalization, the increase of online shopping, competition had never been fiercer. As the Ksubi boys struggled with commercial imperatives, they announced their partnership with Australian department store chain David Jones in 2009. Ksubi saw this as an opportunity to reprice items as part of their evolution in brand positioning. But by the end of 2012, it was the end of the partnership, and David Jones attributed this decision due to the recorded poor sales. And along with this, David Jones took the stated position that the Ksubi brand was moving further away from an upper street clothing line due to Ksubi's release of their cheaper children's line in Target and Kmart. Yikes. The writing was on the wall. In 2010, Ksubi fell into voluntary administration and was put in the hands of Grant Thornton. The founders claimed that they were operating on extremely low margins, which could not maintain the growth and development of the brand. This saw a restructure in the top of the company, with founders foregoing some of their shareholding to the Bleach Group, another company in the streetwear business. Eventually, the founders would exit the building and the troubled brand. And the brand, after restructuring and solvency, would change hands several times and finally found a new home with Phil Staub's Australian General Pants Group.
My name's Craig King. I've been in the rag trade for quite some time now. Basically started as a buyer and sort of moved into design. And then sort of later in life was running companies. I was Mark Keary's right-hand man at Marks in the 90s through sort of the heyday there. Learned a lot from him. Moved on to General Pants and was CEO there for, I think, 13 years. Well, I was running both businesses for a while. When we first picked up Ksubi, we didn't have lofty ambitions. The product always worked really well at General Pants. So the idea was to just keep the supply going to General Pants. As such, it performed really well. And then we started getting calls from the States saying, hey, are you interested in the distribution over in America? So we picked it up and went over there. And yeah, how does Ksubi look these days? We've really established a strong foothold in the States. We've got a great support base there. The urban community, rappers, NBA players are all wearing the brand. So we're finding a lot of success in the US. We've opened a few stores. We opened in Los Angeles, New York, recently in Miami and Chicago, also in London more recently. So we've got a nice bricks and mortar sort of footprint. Online's particularly strong through there, and we're in all sort of the major doors through Saks, Nordstrom's, Neiman Marcus, Kith. So yeah, growing really nicely, a really healthy business, and really proud and happy with what the team's achieved. Our core target market, it sort of depends on the country. Definitely in America, we've got a strong urban following due to the strong representation we've had with some of the more sort of revered rappers and entertainers in America. They dress a certain way. There's a certain aesthetic that's quite loud and proud, sort of boisterous, different to what you see in Australia. The Australian men in particular don't like to stand out. We joke that they want to look different like all their friends. And so things are very simple and classic in Australia, but in America, it's very much it's very much a peacock syndrome, like, check this out, look at me. And we lean into that aesthetic over there.
My role here at Ksubi today is basically everything from design through to marketing, campaign concepts, advertising campaigns, through to collabs with different artists or different brands. So yeah, it's a huge role, and it kind of, I float throughout most of the building. I think that was probably 2 years ago. We shot on a private jet, and we were kind of like, I think we were stuck. It was COVID, and we were kind of stuck in. The hardest thing about this brand sometimes is, like, we're stuck here in Australia, and we're talking to this audience in the US, and really resonating with this rap world. But half the time they have no idea we're like this tiny brand sitting here in Sydney. So it was kind of like, how do we speak to them even though we're stuck in Sydney? Like, what can we do? And so
I mentioned earlier, my family kind of work in the airline industry, so we reached out to a few people at Bankstown Airport and found a private jet that wasn't flying that week, and we shot it on the private jet. And just kind of, we wanted to kind of show that lifestyle inside of like, you know, how these rappers travel.
So why we went into sort of the rap community, we sort of sat back. We weren't sure whether we sailed into their shipping lane or they sailed into our shipping lane. And it sort of turns out it's a little bit of both. When I spoke to Travis Scott and to A$AP Rocky and said, you know, why are you messing with our brand? They all had like a similar response was, you know, we're rappers, we're rock stars, we want to look like rock stars. And we looked around at the product in the market. Ksubi always had a bit of a rock star aesthetic. It was a little bit louder and had, you know, strong design sort of language. So they naturally gravitated towards it. So when we took over the brand, I think in 2016, and we were looking at the market, obviously Virgil Abloh had incredible success with Off-White, and I think he might have just moved to Louis Vuitton. You know, it was a bit of a no-brainer that we would lean into that market and, you know, work off that market to sort of build the brand again, because it actually had pretty much disappeared in America. So, you know, I can't say it was a genius. It seemed like the obvious thing for us to do at the time, and things springboarded from there.
I grew up in Western Sydney. I went to an all-boys school, and probably around high school kind of time started getting into fashion. Went to an all-boys school, so there wasn't a big fashion avenue there to pursue. So a high school teacher kind of got me onto screen printing. So I was screen printing T-shirts, and, you know, high school is kind of when you enter the social part of life. So screen printing a new T-shirt for a party was pretty cool. So I started doing that for a few friends, and then other people asked, and I kind of thought kind of, this is pretty cool. You know, I thought to myself like, oh, I'm a fashion designer. Like, you know, at high school, I thought it was pretty easy. Just kind of design some things during the week in art class, print them onto tees, seal them back at home in mum's laundry. And then on the weekends, everyone turned up to the party wearing kind of Brad's kind of clothes. And I think that was the early 2000s. And a friend of mine kind of was like, have you heard of this brand Ksubi? They're kind of like kicking ass. They're doing like crazy shit. So I really kind of looked into Ksubi then and was like, whoa, this is like, how do I get in with these guys? So yeah, the next 2 years of high school was just really about fashion and setting myself up outside of high school. And then I applied to East Sydney TAFE, where Nicholas Huxley was the head teacher there. And he, I think he declined my application twice. I think my first 2 years out of high school.
My name is Nicholas Huxley. I was the head of the fashion design studio at TAFE since 1990. Before that, I've been actually teaching for nearly 40 years. I finished in 2018 after some adventures around the world, and I am currently mentoring designers in Fiji. Over that 40 years, I've had the great pleasure of seeing some, I'd say, sort of stalwarts of the fashion industry come through the school that I've mentored, people like Akira Izugawa, Alex Perry, the guys from Romance Was Born, Anna and Luke, Bianca Spender. Then we go on to people like Dion Lee, Nikki Zimmerman, and it just goes on and on. There's lots and lots of them. I've been very, very, very lucky that I had that period where those people actually came to that school, and I got to grow with them, you know, watch their talent grow and then become successful.
Coming from an all-boys school, like, I didn't know what applications kind of, you know, what you needed to do to get into like a prestigious school like that. So eventually, I think 2005, I got into East Sydney and did the advanced diploma course with him. And I was just interning a bit at Ksubi, interning a bit with Wayne Cooper, working in the Ksubi store. So I kind of figured out early on, I just needed to surround myself with the people I wanted to be like, I guess. Like, there was no one in my family who was going to help me get into this fashion world. So it was just kind of like, all right, how do I get there? All right, how do I get to know Dan and George? All right, let's go party with them. Let's go here. So it was all looking back on it, some people would say it was like quite strategic, but it was just kind of having fun.
Is it a trend aligning with rappers? I don't think so much of a trend that brands, probably in the last 10 years, and a lot of the ones that have really it's been about hype. Digital media, how many reasons can you find for hypebeasts to talk about you? How many reasons the things that you need to post on a daily basis and talk about and get interaction, speak to your audience?
So I guess Ksubi currently today, like you said, going from the rats to kind of rap music, I think it probably started with the opening of Ksubi's first store in New York, which was around the corner from where it is currently on Mulberry Street. And they opened it near a pretty well-known cafe called Ruby's Cafe. It's kind of where all the supermodels hung out. It was kind of the hot spot in Lolita. And that was at the same time you had A$AP Rocky kind of making a name for himself. You had, Theophilus London, you had people like Travis Scott, like slowly breaking through in the music world. And they found this brand, this kind of punk rock brand really cool. So I think it kind of birthed there, and I know A$AP really got into it, and we started making some custom pieces for him, and he kind of owned it. And then it was just at the same time that his career was taking off, and he was turning up in Ksubi, and word was getting around the rap community that like there's this brand, they're like really punk rock, they just don't give a fuck. That it had another like life in that music world, and it was kind of like hot fires burning throughout the music studios in New York. And I know Travis really looked up to A$AP, and people were hearing about this brand, and so and just by like no planning, like these people came into the brand's life at very great times. I mean, Travis was blowing up by the time the collab with Travis was available to the public. His profile in the public was crazy. So yeah, just the domino effect from like those early days with those young rappers as they were coming up really kind of brought us up with them. Yeah, so our biggest collab probably to date would be our collab with Travis Scott. So he was one of our almost first customers that ever came into the LA store. So the day we opened, he turned up in a Lamborghini, jumped out, came in, was like shopping around, bought a ton of stuff, got back in the car, and the staff member at the time was like, yo, that was Travis Scott. And we're like, let's reach out to him. So we reached out to him and got chatting, and he was like, let's do it. And in that time between that initial conversation and the collab coming out, he dropped his like first album and EP, and he was just like shooting for the stars. And so that was like when that dropped and the collab dropped, that really put Ksubi on a global, it gave it that global like projection that it kind of has today.
So the brands have tended to trend in the last 5 years in our area have really been about the hype brands. And I think it's been going on for a long time. You'll take a famous designer from one brand and put him in another brand. And I appreciate that maybe in more recent times with Pharrell going to Louis Vuitton, that seems like a thing, but I think it's always been happening in various forms. And I think it'll continue to keep on happening. I think it's not across the board. There's certain personalities that are gaining a lot of attention, and some of them are known for their dress sense and their style, and some of them are known for music, and some of them are known for doing crazy activities. Pharrell has been a stylish man for his entire life. It's been part of his DNA. A$AP Rocky has been cool forever, handsome guy, looks great in clothes. Kanye West led style for a long, long time. So I don't think it's about sort of the demographic in as much as these guys are doing incredible things. They're super cool, and people can see that.
Now, style icon A$AP Rocky is not just a casual fan of the Ksubi jeans brand. He's such a fan, the guy actually got a tattoo of Ksubi on his hip.
In fashion, just like in hip hop, you can't only set the bar, you also have to raise it. Here's a look at some fashion do's and don'ts. Do. Be unique and independent with your style and choices. Don't wear an NFL jersey with your name in the back of it unless you're willing to take a hit for that team. Do. When it comes to fashion, break out the box, take a risk. Don't literally wear a box. Yo, who thought of this? This is Do. Have a hairstyle that complements your overall style. Don't shave your sideburns above your ears. You look like a damn narc or something. Do. Dress casually when a situation calls for it. Don't dress like you're golfing, even when you're golfing.
Don't push me, Bob. Now's not the time.
I swear to God, I hate the way golfers dress. Do. Just like writing lyrics, sometimes just keep it simple. Don't over-accessorize, or else people are gonna end up pitying the fool. Hey, suck a dab turkey, I pity the fool. Do wear the Canadian tuxedo. No, don't wear the Canadian tuxedo, ever. Back to you, George, and remember, don't be a fashion killer, bro. So I ain't got no bail money, man.
And rap icon Travis Scott is known to be a long-time fan of the Ksubi brand, but it's actually more than that. The guy's actually been involved as a designer on some amazing Ksubi collaborations.
Who do you consider a fashion icon?
Ryan Gosling.
Nice. Cool.
And Shia LaBeouf. You know, my personality is just like high level rage, high level performance. So I kind of like try to give my fashion input just like on merch, but like any other brand, like with Ksubi, you know, I kind of like to just go with it, you know, their vibe and just kind of like just bring my personality on it. I've just been able to get more stuff. You mature in like different ways. It's like taste level and things. Some things you just don't want to do anymore or wear anymore. It's just like, you know, yeah, you outgrow, you know. It's like this cartoon that goes on in my head all the time. And I just kind of like, I'm just like Pixar, man. I'm just trying to like design, like make this like the highest level or whatever mood I'm in, you know. It's like, I just try to translate that mood. Whatever time zone we in, you know, cater to that too. We have 24 hours in a day. There we go. I'm really into like, you know, just anything creative.
Today, Ksubi has a strong presence with its own designer boutiques in fashion-forward cities like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Miami, London, and a new megastore flagship is soon to open in the heart of Sydney. And the brand continues its plans to keep expanding its reach internationally with new stores and a new retail concept. Ksubi's connection and alignment with American rap music has become so entrenched today that multiple different rappers and performers have referenced the Ksubi brand in their song lyrics.
Ksubi jeans, white tee, I got the stacks on racks on me. Pull up Maserati, Versace, she let me be with that body. She got Stami on Dottie because I pull out no Gotti. Ksubi jeans, white tee, I got the stacks on racks on me. Pull up Maserati, Versace, she let me be with that body. She got Stami on Dottie.
Now this is remarkable because this kind of phenomena had been the preserve of global icon brands like Gucci and Tom Ford in the past. And now it's Ksubi in the same pantheon of greatness.
Yeah, I think the link between like, you know, your Virgils and your Louis Vuittons and, you know, the music and all that kind of comes back to like a simple equation. Like these people want to just be rock stars. And, you know, A$AP Rocky is a rock star. He's like the Sid Vicious of the rap world. And Travis Scott is the Sid Vicious or, the Ramones of the rap community, and they dress, take away skin pigment and all that kind of stuff. They dress the same. They've got skinny jeans, they're ripped up, they've got art, they've cut the sleeves off. And Sid Vicious did that, ASAP Rocky wears that. So if you look at like the uniform for this kind of rap world, it's the same uniform as we saw back in like the British punk rock days, CBGB days, but these guys are like having their moment. And I think for us, the skinny jeans, but they look punk rock, the attitude, the no rules kind of book that we read out of is the same book that they read out of. So that's where, we align so heavily, I guess. You look at anyone coming up, like later on in life, things change, but like when you're coming through the music world or coming through the fashion world, you really you're just doing what's cool, you're doing what you like. There's no rule book that you're playing into, and I think, that's kind of how we align so well with these rappers, because they can just see themselves in what we do.
I think the early highlight we had with our collabs was probably Travis Scott. He was the second customer to our Los Angeles store when we opened it up. He pulled up his Lamborghini, came in, bought 5 pairs of jeans. The manager said at the end of the day, "Hey, Travis Scott came in today, bought 5 pairs of jeans." And we're like, well, that's kind of news. You could have told us. He was about to do Coachella, so we reached out to his stylist and said, "Hey, could we dress you for Coachella? We didn't realize you're a fan of the brand." And they said, "Yeah, let's do that for sure." So in the backwards and forwards of putting together his outfits for Coachella, he was enjoying the exercise. We were dealing with some of his creative guys. It was a lot of fun. And we said, "Guys, we should expand this into a collab." So that was our first major collab. And I think that was in 2017, October 2017 it launched. It's 2 weeks after it opened the New York store. Travis was a bit hard to find about 48 hours before the store opened, and the event happened. And then we noticed that he jumped on Twitter and said, "Come down to my event at Green Street, the Ksubi store tonight at 7 o'clock. So we invited 250 people and we had about 800 come down.
So obviously, as we mentioned, Travis Scott was kind of the biggest collab that we did that kind of really took us onto that US platform. It kind of resonated through the rap world and people kind of, I guess, discovering the brand for the first time, even though we'd been around for, 10 years already in the Australian market and being that anti-establishment brand that we kind of are. The American market were finding out about us for the first time. So off the back of Travis Scott, a year later, we did a collab with Kendall Jenner. And Kendall Jenner, again, was kind of like, I think back then she was dating The Weeknd. So, that rap kind of, she's an up-and-coming supermodel in the music world as well. So, so she really resonated again to our female audience. So within 2 years, the brand just hit top gear in the US. And we opened up the New York store, which was kind of became the home base for all these younger rappers that idolized Travis and idolized Kendall. So we made custom jackets, custom jeans, custom t-shirts just for his music videos or press appearances, and through that the Travis Scott collab. So Travis was probably our first big US collab. Before that, we'd done some collabs with Jeremy Scott, which kind of date back to kind of early Subis. But Travis was our Jeremy Loves Ksubi. So between Jeremy Loves Ksubi and Travis was the next one. So there was quite a bit of you obviously know, Ksubi went through a bit of a tumultuous kind of phase during that period. And then there was, we launched our accessories business with ASAP Taiwai. So we're part of the ASAP mob, huge fans. So we did this pretty pretty amazing smash and grab campaign video, which went quite viral. We filmed a bit of it in Australia and filmed the rest on the streets of Harlem, just tearing around the quad bikes and just kind of, again, just lawless. You know, we went into it with an idea and just kind of ran with that. We were running traffic lights. We were kind of doing some crazy shit, but that video came out incredibly well. The original idea was, we want to do jewelry. How can we do it in a Ksubi way? And I was like, well, what about the jewelry store gets robbed? Like, the accessories, the jewelry we're bringing out so hot that people need to steal it to get it. So we kind of filmed that scene, and then we were chatting to ASAP Taiwan and his manager just in Instagram DMs, and we were like, hey, we've got this idea, like, would you be down? And he was like, 100%, let's do it. I'm like, maybe you guys are like, come in and then you take off on your dirt bikes. And then it was kind of this idea, but it finished just so cinematically. Like, some of the footage was just, you know, we had a really good team working on that one. And it was only a 30-second video, but like, I think it finishes with people just like, whoa.
Niggas claiming that they gang. 100 round drum go bang. 100 round drum go bang. Leave a mess, make a stain. Niggas claiming that they gang. 100 round drum go bang. 100 round drum go bang on God. Fresh air ones in a lumberjack. I'm fucking up good and shit coming back. You play with me once, ain't no coming back.
Travis is really hands-on, yeah. And I think like a lot of the collabs we do, all these guys, they're creative people, like, you know, like, their music's creative, like they want to be designing every piece of it. So it's like, when you say a collab, it's like a legitimate collab. You know, like, they have their art kids, we have our art kids, we mash up, we do Zoom calls, chat over like what art they've designed, what art we've done. Hey, we'll take that art, we'll let our team run that art through a treatment here. Oh, that's fire. Boom. So it's super collaborative. And working with the US is kind of like, it's never ending. So we wake up, work on something, fire it across to them. They wake up, get it. And it's just like boom, boom, boom. So yeah, it's like it's a full on collab. There's no kind of like, I haven't heard back from them yet. Like, oh, it's been 2 days. It's like, it's pretty on. And I think you have to be really quick with collabs these days, because, you know, if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And that's kind of, you know, I guess the way the brands kind of run. It's just like, oh, you like us, we like you, let's do something. So,
and despite how this new direction evolved, it's working, and Ksubi's business is growing strongly in American and other international markets. Now, Ksubi's connection and alignment with American rap music has become so entrenched that today there are multiple different rappers and performers who have referenced the Ksubi brand in their song lyrics. You know, previously, this phenomena had only been seen and was the preserve of global icons like the Gucci and Tom Ford brand names.
Yeah, Kat's Back, collab with Kat McNeil, kind of got birthed out of, I guess, my friendship with her. When I moved to New York in 2012, she was one of the first people I met out on like just a night out. And her boyfriend was English guy, pretty punk rock, covered in tattoos. So she linked us up together, and a week later we were all living together. So I lived with Kat in New York for about 8 years. And yeah, I moved back to Australia, and she did as well, kind of around the same time. And we kept chatting about, you know, doing something together. And she's got over the years we lived together, we'd have, you know, get tattoos, tit for tat, you know, she'd get a tat, I get a tat. So she ended up kind of being that rogue supermodel. And I think her aesthetic and the brand's aesthetic was just like, how are we not, and our friendship was like, how are we not going to do this? Like, you're the most rebellious supermodel there is. Your agency told you every time you got a tattoo that you were ruining your career, and it only just made your career bigger and bigger. But that's the brand Bible that Ksubi lives by, that the rappers live by. It's like, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to do it, and I know what I'm doing. And if you don't like it, then like, we'll find someone else that wants to do it with it. So I moved to New York after graduating from East Sydney Fashion School to pursue fashion photography. So after leaving East Sydney Fashion School, I was doing a bit of design. I was working interning with obviously Ksubi and some, and I kind of not befriended, a photographer that was shooting a lot, Kane Scanner, took me on and put me as his first assistant and kind of showed me the ropes. And one day sat me aside and just said, look, if you're actually passionate, like keen to make a living as a photographer, you need to leave Australia and go to New York. So I kind of took off, got to New York, called all the people I knew, worked in the Ksubi store in New York, met ASAP Rocky in the store, met Theophilus London. That was the same time that these guys were coming up. So we did some custom stuff for Theophilus London. We did some custom stuff for ASAP Rocky.
Hey, yo, boss. It's time to get this money.
Yeah, this is 2012. So yeah, I was working in the Ksubi store in Bondi, interning at Ksubi, doing freelance stuff, assisting Kane. And then I was like, no, I'll take photography seriously because I'll do that. So I moved to New York as an assistant to learn off the bigger guys. And on the days off, just worked in the Ksubi store on Mulberry Street. And just hung out, like Ruby's Cafe was next door. So you had Gemma Ward, you had Cab McNeil, ASAP Rocky, all just lingering around. Then they'd come into the Ksubi store and you'd draw on a tee. And it was just fun. Like no one knew what they were doing. It was just like, oh yeah. And then you'd see them out later that night and they'd be like, oh, you got the t-shirt on, yeah? And they're like, oh, just sit. So yeah, it was just very organic kind of time to be in New York. And that's kind of where, yeah, that was the same time as kind of everyone started to pop off. Gemma Ward was the biggest Australian model of her time. You know, ASAP Rocky came out with his album, his EP. Kat McNeil was shooting everything.
They were always coming up with the most innovative washes and ideas and concepts and shapes. So we wanted to keep that alive because that was the DNA of the brand. And when you've got this sort of, this pair of jeans that trends skinny and trends wide and trends printed and trends destroyed and trends colors, you can just sort of follow that curve. So we found it was a pretty dynamic brand and dynamic product to work with. Now, if you're a suiting brand, maybe the last 10 years might have been pretty tricky because no one was putting a suit on. So I think we found a product category and a brand that was exciting, that we could do lots of dynamic things with, but the product could always bend and flex with what was going on.
I think the Ksubi, everybody remembers those, the live rats on the runway. I don't think anyone, I just remember seeing the footage of all these women sort of put their feet up and just like, and it was, I think that shock factor, Ksubi as a brand was cutting edge. It had that shock factor and that's what they wanted, it was always a statement brand. And it was an incredible time. It was that sort of streetwear that was coming out. And I guess really, we didn't really, aside from the surf brands, have a brand of streetwear that was like Ksubi. I think it's been incredibly iconic in the sense that, it was that sort of next generation sort of lifestyle brand that was cool and edgy and, really made its mark amongst the cool kids and still continues to do so under new leadership.
Look, I wouldn't profess to know the secrets of longevity. I know what I know what we've been executing. I think for brands to stay relevant for a long time, they need 2 parts confidence and 1 part anxiety. If you start believing your own hype, you're just going to steer off into whatever direction you think is really, really cool, but the market could go, no, we're going this way. And you turn around and go, hey, where'd my business go? So, we believe in our aesthetic and we work it really, really hard. But we're also really conscious of what's going on in the marketplace. And, we look at entertainers and artists and what's trending. Not that we try and be a trendy brand, but we want to basically digest what's going in the marketplace and see what it means for us. So we're always trying to take in sort of pop culture, learn from it, decipher whether that means something to us, because not everything does, and then how we're going to execute that and stay relevant. And that comes down a lot to our collabs, comes down a lot to the people we like to dress and then sort of work with, just to keep the brand sort of in people's faces. Do we have people that we talk to about trends and style? Yeah, we've definitely got a few feelers out there. There's people, got friends in London, I won't give you their names, or people that, stylists that we deal with that will tell us, what they're looking for into the future. I'm living between New York and Australia now just for that reason, so I can be closer to the market, see what happens to be trending, or who's wearing what, or if any aesthetics are coming through that we should be aware of. And it's made a big difference living there versus living here in Australia, that's for sure.
Now into its third decade, the Ksubi brand seems to have stood the test of time and looks forward to its future, attracting the next generation of fans.